Thankfully, the crime in my family tree doesn't warrant crime scene tape. But in this video, I'm going to share some of the details I found out about William Beaton, my great-grandfather. William, or Willie as I like to call him, is one of the last great-grandparents that I researched, and he's been the most challenging. His research story includes DNA and other mysteries. In fact, I call it the Beaton-Batten mystery. But for today, we're going to learn about the time he was arrested for bootlegging. Here are some photos of him. On the left with my great-grandmother and three of their children. At this point, my grandmother wasn't born yet. In the center is William with his son-in-law, my grandfather, on the Middleborough side. And on the right, a photo of William when he was closer to the time period I'm going to talk about. When I first started researching Willie Beaton, I asked my mom and her siblings about him. This is what my Uncle Ken had to say about his grandpa. All I remember about Granddad Beaton was that he was a very kind person with a good sense of humor. However, my uncle's wife, June, had another opinion. She said, my family lived beside William Beaton, and he was a bootlegger. Quite often, Auntie would mention this to me, and I kept telling her that I hadn't found anything about him being a bootlegger, that I'd only found that he'd been in trouble once. You see, I found William in a court document regarding a crime, but it didn't seem like a huge deal. I mean, it was a big deal in 1920 to keep your children from school, but keeping your children from school didn't seem like being much of a troublemaker. William was charged and fined $2.85 for not sending his daughter Violet and son Gordon to school. What's cool about this document is that it's signed by the police magistrate Emily Murphy. In fact, when I had the information and complaint photocopied at the Alberta Archives, the clerk whispered to me, "Did you see who signed the document?" Why Emily Murphy is so interesting is because in 1916, she became the first female magistrate in Canada. She is best known for her contributions to Canadian feminism, specifically to the question of whether women were persons under Canadian law. Murphy is known as one of the famous five, a group of Canadian women's rights activists that also included Henrietta Edwards, Nellie McClung, Louise McKinney, and Irene Palbury. I hope you read more about her on her Wikipedia page that you'll find linked in the notes below. Sometime between the truancy court case in 1920 and the case I'm going to tell you about in 1947, William had moved and he now lived on 93rd Street. When I checked where Willie lived in comparison to my Auntie June's family, I found out they were a mere 2-minute walk apart. So they were neighbors, meaning they lived in the same neighborhood, but they didn't live next door to each other. I found these addresses in the 1947 and 1950 Henderson Directory. I'd never found anything about William's bootlegging escapade until the Edmonton Journal was offered on Newspapers Extra, which is on newspapers.com. Newspapers Extra means you pay a premium above your regular subscription to gain access to certain newspapers, and that included the Edmonton Journal. There he was, William Beaton, living at the address that was only a few blocks from my aunt's parents. And he'd been fined $300 after pleading guilty to illegal sales of liquor. The article goes on to say that the police said that Willie had sold a case of beer. The police had received complaints from other residents of the district. I'm hoping that my aunt's parents lived far enough away that it wasn't them. This article was in the newspaper in 1947, so my aunt was only 7 years old, and so I'm thinking that what she had thought of Grandpa Beaton was what she'd heard from her parents. Willie was given until February 12th to pay the fine, or he would have to serve 3 months in jail. 3 months seems a bit harsh, but so does the $300 fine. Let's have a look at what that means in today's terms. At age 72, Willie was expected to pay $300, which is equivalent to $4,632.74 in today's money. Keep in mind that other than some odd jobs, his only real source of income was from his pension, which was $40 a month. So the fine was pretty hefty. After I found the article, I went to the City of Edmonton Archives and found a group of documents that pertained to Willie's case. The news article was printed in the paper on Wednesday, January 22nd, and this letter is dated 2 days earlier. So the actual court had taken place on January 15th. The letter gives further detail as to what has happened, according to my great-grandfather's lawyer. It's addressed to H.D. Ainley, who was the mayor of Edmonton. Harry Ainley was a principal and then went into politics and served as an alderman on city council and later served 3 terms as mayor of Edmonton, and he's a prominent person in the city. In fact, there is a high school named after him. So here's what the lawyer wrote. Beaton is a man of 72 years of age, receiving an old age pension. He has lived in the city of Edmonton for a great many years, and during much of that time was a teamster teaming for the stockyards. He has never been in any trouble during his lifetime, and on no occasion has he been charged in any criminal court. Now, I find that a little bit interesting because he had been, because we just saw that. Unfortunately, in this instance, he has committed acts which will meet the technical requirement of the Sale of the Liquor Act. One of his sons is a motorman on the Edmonton Street Railway, and in this case, they're talking about my grandmother's half-sibling, Bob Beaton. Apparently, there are parties from time to time, and many of the motormen gather with the son at the house of the accused. Neighbors apparently complaining over seeing parties come and go and indications that there was a certain amount of drinking. As a result of this, the mortality squad apparently sent one of their undercover men to visit the home of the accused. He informed the accused that he was a close friend of a certain streetcar motorman and was having a party and was short of beer. He wanted to know if the accused could help him out. The accused informed him that he had but 1 case of beer of his own and 1 case that belonged to a man who was boarding with the Beatons. The undercover man persisted, and finally Beaton consented to help him out by letting him have one of the 2 cases of beer. He then left $3 to cover the cost of the beer. The undercover man went outside, came back shortly with Foster of the mortality squad, and the accused admitted that he had given the case of beer, that he had taken the $3, and invited them to search his premises. A search was made, and the 2 case of beer of which the accused had spoken was found and taken along with the others by the police. The accused stated that no time had he ever sold liquor in the usual sense of the word. Technically, he is guilty of a sale under the Act. He is pleading guilty and will be called upon to pay a fine of $300. I submit that Chief Constable Jennings will bear me out when I say that Beaton has had at all times been a good citizen. I believe the Chief Constable has known him for many years and that he is in no sense one of the class known as a bootlegger. I submit, sir, this is a case in which you could exercise your discretion and make a refund of the fine herein. Yours truly, Jackson, McDonald, and Patterson per Guy Patterson. In the letter, the lawyer stated that Chief Constable Jennings knows William Beaton and that he's a good citizen, and they appear to have known each other for years. But just as I noted, I did some research of Reginald Jennings, and he didn't live near William Beaton, but rather quite a distance away, and had lived in that location for most of his married life. So I'm not exactly sure how they might have known each other, but if they did know each other, then it could be beneficial to Willie to call in that favor. As you can see, there's quite a bit of correspondence that goes on in this case. And then finally on February 7th, the Chief Constable Reginald Jennings writes to the city commissioners stating that he would recommend $150 be the new fine for this case. There are quite a few more pages going back and forth in the correspondence, and there's involving not only the Edmonton mayor and the police commissioner, but also the deputy attorney general for the province. You can see here that in this one, the city commissioners concur with the chief of police and are quite agreeable to the reduction of the fine to $150 and shall be glad to know whether you concur, as it appears that Beaton is unable to pay the full amount and will be liable to be imprisoned if some concession is not made. And so it goes on and on. To date, I haven't found any record of William paying the fine or serving the time, so I'm not exactly sure what ended up happening. So what do you think? First of all, should William Beaton have been charged with bootlegging, or do you think he was entrapped? And if you think that he deserved the charge of bootlegging, what do you think of the fine or the jail sentence that he was given? Do you think it was excessive? Please comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have a great day and happy hunting.